Okay, we're going to get started tonight with the April Board of Zoning Appeals meeting. Before we get to our agenda, I want to make a few announcements. The Board of Zoning Appeals is a quasi-judicial body, and as such, the latitude for acting on applications is somewhat limited by state statute and city ordinance. This meeting is being recorded, and those appearing before the board will need to identify themselves, give their address, and be sworn in for the record. We ask you come to the podium to do that and into the microphone so it will be recorded. When motions are made here in the meeting, they will all be made in the affirmative nature. That does not necessarily mean that the motion will be approved. It's simply the way that the language will be when the motion is made. I also want to remind everyone, including our commission members, to please speak into the mic when you are speaking to the commission so that we make sure that we have everything documented. At this point, I want to swear in the staff. If you'll raise your right hand, you swear to tell the truth, whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God. All right. We do have a quorum for this meeting, and we have had the minutes for the the March meeting have been circulated among the members. Does anyone have any comments or
roll call?
Can we call?
I'm sorry.
Roll?
Yeah, I'm just moving right along. If you'll call the roll to establish the quorum.
Thank you.
I can see that we have one, so but yes, call the roll.
Mr. Yulhorn. Here. Mr. Harless.
Here.
Mr. Hurley.
Here.
Ms. Bowden.
Here.
Alderman Gibson.
Here.
Chairman Sisson.
Here. Okay, now the minutes have been circulated. Anybody have any questions or comments as far as anything that needs to be?
Make a motion for approval.
Thank you, Mr. Harless, and have Mr. Yulhorn second. At this time, will you call the roll?
Ms. Bowden.
Yes.
Mr. Hurley.
Abstain.
Mr. Harless.
Yes.
Mr. Yulhorn.
Yes.
Alderman Gibson.
Yes.
Chairman Sisson.
Abstain. The minutes are approved. Moving on to our next item, this is regarding 3056 Foster Grove Road. At this time, I'll turn it over to staff to make their report, and then we'll hear from the applicant. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Chairman. The item before you is at 3056 Foster Grove Road. It is located in the RH Retirement Housing District. The specific request is for a variance to allow a 9-foot-high accessory structure to be less than the minimum required distance from the rear property line. Here you can see the zoning district and the position of the property right there. This is Johnson Road and Germantown Baptist Church, to give you a frame of reference. This is the specific property survey, and here is a large-scale enlargement of the area where the variance is being requested. The variance is for an accessory structure, 9-foot-high height. It would be located 4.36 feet from the rear property line. There is a neighborhood wall that actually goes through the property and the adjoining properties. That is 2.5 feet from the rear property line. There is also a utility easement located here at the rear property line. The respective utilities, MLG&W, AT&T, have released the easement, and Comcast says that they do not have a problem with an encroachment into that easement. There's also a 20-foot landscape buffer along here between the property and Johnson Road. Here you can see that. So the accessory structure here is located 32 feet from the edge of Johnson Road. There was a previous accessory structure located here. Staff could not find permits for the previous accessory structure, but we did go back to 2010 using Google and saw that the structure was there. The current request, it would be in the same footprint, and it would be approximately 1 foot higher with a total height of 9 feet. The applicant is requesting that the pergola with grilling station be granted in this location. He has received approval from the Homeowners Association. And as mentioned, he received approval from the easement locators there, MLG&W, AT&T, and Comcast. The applicant is requesting that this variance be granted because the prior structure that was on the property in 2010 needed to be repaired. It was in disrepair with rotting wood. Additionally, that lot is somewhat constrained per the applicant with the neighborhood wall located there. Also, the applicant has provided views from the edge of Johnson Road back towards the property. The accessory structure is located back in here. As mentioned, 32.5 feet from the edge of the road. This concludes staff's report, and the applicant is also here for questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions of staff? All right, thank you very much.
I forgot, I wanted to show you, this is what the previous structure looked like against and that's the subdivision wall. And then also this, oops, did not go. This is the structure that's requesting the variance in the same footprint.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, at this time, if the applicant wishes to speak, you can come up. If you'll just state your name and your address.
I'm Todd Glidewell. I'm the owner at 3056 Foster Grove Road. I have nothing to add unless there are questions.
Are there questions? Because I would, let me go ahead and swear you in, and then if there's questions, then we'll be ready. Okay.
All right.
Do you swear to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth, and do you swear to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you. All right. Any questions? I'm just trying to go way too fast tonight. I apologize.
It's okay by me.
Mr. Gladwell, what is the roof material on there now?
Well, the roof material there now is a corrugated tin. The Homeowners Association has asked that I replace that with a metal roof material that matches the existing patio structure, which is more of a standing seam metal roof. And I've agreed to do that, and that's a part of their request and approval.
And why did you build it 9 feet high?
Well, because it's a grilling area, I wanted to give plenty of room for the smoke to dissipate and also for clearance of any flame ups.
And if we requested you to lower it by a foot, what kind of impact would that have on you?
Well, obviously, it would require an effort and expense on my part. It could be done if that's what it takes. I would ask that I not have to do that, obviously, but if that's what I have to do, I'd find a way to make it happen.
Well, the problem we have is that we're contained by state statutes on things that we can approve.
Yes, sir.
And I'm not sure that you meet any of the criteria for variance from our commission, and this is my opinion. But if we got you down to 8 feet, am I correct, staff, that would fall within the approval or within the ordinances?
So as we discussed at executive session, the RH So as we discussed at executive session, the RH zoning district has somewhat different language than all the other residential zoning districts. All the other residential zoning districts say that an accessory structure, 8 feet or less, is to be 3.5 feet from the rear property line. Once it's over 8 feet, it is to be it's supposed to be the distance from the rear property line equal to its height. The RH zoning district states that an accessory structure is to be the distance from the property line equal to its height. There is a question that maybe this section of the ordinance should have also been updated when the other ones were, and that did not occur. So that's a possibility.
Thank you.
Just a question, Mr. Gladwell. I did, as well as I believe at least one of the other commissioners, do a drive-by. You really can't see it from the street because of the tree that's, I'm guessing, directly in front of it. Just to make certain that I understand, the structure is as it's shown right now. It is up. That is how it is.
Yes, ma'am.
If I can just make a comment, Mrs. Gibson, they're going to have to take the roof off, which is part of the major expense if we were going to lower it a foot. So he's going to have some impact financially on replacing that roof.
Certainly, and I saw the letter from the Homeowners Association that y'all had come to an agreement on that. It certainly looks like there's a pitch that's on the roof.
It's pretty steep.
And it looks pretty steep.
Actually, it's, if I may, I'm
Yes,
sorry.
please. No,
It is a 1-inch pitch, and I had it at that because I wanted just enough to get the rainwater off.
sure.
It's a bit of an illusion on that.
Okay. Well, I was just trying to find 12 inches somewhere to see if we could squish it down a little
Right.
bit.
Because I wanted to reduce the height of the roof, I only pitched it 1 inch, so.
I think the easy way to reduce the height would be not take it off the top, but take it off the bottom, a foot. Cut the post a foot off, let them sit back down. But that's just me.
And just to confirm again, because looking at pictures, I want to be sure. The former structure was approximately 8 feet, because it's now 9 feet, and you think you added a foot.
That's the best of my recollection. I don't have the precise measurements of the
Okay.
prior structure.
I was, trying to look back and forth, but pictures are not always the best for
Right,
that kind of
right.
stuff, so.
Well, and the one thing that I'll just add here is that it is 32 feet from Johnson Road, and it cannot be seen, but it sounds like there's another issue at play here that I'm not quite understanding. Is that with the,
Well, just for your edification, if I may, Mr. Chairman, the ordinance from the city of Germantown states that you can't have an accessory structure taller than X number of feet if it's within 3 feet of the building, 5 feet of whatever it is, and you're in violation of that.
Right.
Okay. So it doesn't matter if it can be seen from the street or not. You're in violation of the ordinance, and we're trying to get you out of being in violation.
right?
So
Well,
at least that's what I'm trying to do. Now, obviously, this board has the power to grant a variance to you if they see fit.
And that was going to be my question. It's my understanding I'm actually asking for a variance
that's
from
correct.
that. And
That's correct.
not to be argumentative, but
No.
to understand
No.
what we're talking about.
We appreciate your questions. I
Yeah.
mean, this is, you probably don't go through this process very often.
Not very often, no, sir.
And so we certainly understand and appreciate your questions.
Okay, yeah.
I have a question. The original pergola that was up, did you build that in 2010, or was that original to the house in 2004?
As far as I know, we just purchased the house actually purchased it in October, took possession in September. The structure was there. As far as we know, it was there prior to the people we bought from, okay? May have been original to the 04 construction, but I cannot say for certain.
Thank you.
Just to simply point out, and I appreciate Mr. Harless clarifying what the ordinance does call for, and since you are here for a variance, whether it's germane, the board will decide since you can see it or not see it from the street. I feel like that's something important to note.
And in fairness to Mr. Gladwell, if the house was built in '04 and he's the third owner, that was prior to us having the permitting process that we now have, so that Germantown has to approve it before it goes to the county. That was not the case in '04. You just got your permits there. And as a builder, I would think that if I got a permit to build on this lot, that would include any structures.
The problem I see is not the structure being built, and if he had built it 8 feet high, there wouldn't be an issue. And the other one was 8 feet high, he added a foot to it.
Yeah.
To me, that's the issue.
Gotcha.
Well, and respectfully, Mr. Harless, as we have discussed, if it was zoned any other, as far as I understand, please correct me if I'm wrong, if it was zoned residential, then, and he lowered it to 8 feet, that would be potentially something that would alleviate a situation. But right now, it's zoned RH, which is retirement homes, a special type of zoning in your neighborhood. And currently, the statute or the ordinance as it's written, lowering it to 8 feet, as from what we know at this moment in time, would not alleviate that because that ordinance was not updated with the other ordinances. Even though maybe it should have been, we don't know. We just don't know that information yet. So I just wanted to state that as we talk about this 8-foot kind of baseline. Is there any other questions of the applicant?
I was just going to say that you seem like a fine gentleman, and I hope you get your grilling station. All right.
I want my wife to hear this. Thank you.
There you go. But as I've already said in executive session, I don't think your application meets the requirements for a variance. I'm going to vote no. It's no reflection on you. I hope you get your grilling station.
I understand. Thank you.
Okay, if there's no other questions of the applicant, I'll let you take your seat. As per our procedures at this time, is there anyone who wishes to speak in favor of the application? Is there anyone that wishes to speak in opposition of the application? There being no more comments, does the commission like to make a comment?
Yes, Madam Chairman. I'm not sure how we want to make the motion, but I would like to make a motion that if he lowered it to 8 feet, that we approve it. If as I understand the motion that we've got, it's either yes or no based on the existing pergola now. It's either yes or no.
Right, I believe that is the motion. But my concern is that that will not achieve what we need to do.
Well, if staff is going to review.
So another suggestion, because we have this 8 foot, if it, like I said, if it was a different zoning and if it was 8 feet, then maybe he wouldn't need a variance. Another choice that the applicant would have would be to withdraw this tonight, and that would allow staff time to go back and see if perhaps the ordinance for RH has just been accidentally not updated, in which case the 8-foot rule would come into play. Now, let me be clear, that is, the applicant's choice is not something that we, that is completely up to you as far as your timeline. We have a comment from staff.
Along those lines, the way the language reads here, or if it was updated to reflect the other language, his request still is the same. The 9 feet, even if it was an R or an R1 zone, he would still have to be 9 feet from the property line. So that aspect of his request would not change. If he really wants the 9-foot high height, he'd have to be 9 feet from the property line as the RH language reads, or as any of our other R district language reads.
Okay, so we do have 2 at least issues in play potentially.
Well, I was just going to comment, if he withdrew tonight, staff rectified the RH zoning to be residential, then he could reapply at an 8-foot level and there wouldn't be an issue.
Let me say something if you don't mind. If staff finds that the RH zoning was not changed, it's still going to require a zoning ordinance amendment.
3 readings.
Yeah.
That would
so-
be 3 readings back to the Board of Mayor and Aldermen.
Right, and I wouldn't
Planning
vote to
Commission.
presuppose the outcome of that, although it may be pretty certain. I'm not going to vote presupposing that the ordinance is going to be amended when you've got 3 readings.
Okay, well, let's see if we can do this in a shortcut. If we make a motion to approve it as it is and it fails, am I right in saying that if he cuts it down a foot, he doesn't have to come back here again because he'd be in compliance, assuming that the motion would fail?
If the motion failed, he would have to bring it into compliance, which would mean it would have to be the distance from the property line as it is high, as the ordinance reads now. Regardless, staff is going to go and look and see if this ordinance should have been updated or not. And if the ordinance then does get updated per 3 readings and approved, then he could reapply at 8 feet. But Mr. Glidewell has been working on this case since about October, so I think he does want some type of resolution.
Right. Well, what was the deal? What zoning is it that he can be 3.5 feet from the property line?
That is most of our other R zoning districts, and correct me, Mr. Nunes, if I'm wrong, but I believe in almost all other R districts, R1, R3, it's 3.5 feet.
Anyone but the
That's
one
if it's
he's
8
in.
feet or under.
Okay,
So,
he's
I'm sorry,
Without
can
the
I
easement.
ask? I'm sorry.
So he's being penalized because we don't have an R8 zoning anymore, but that's what this came in under? That's hardship enough, I'd say.
We do actually still have RH zoning. This is still zoned RH, but the question,
But I mean, we don't take any new applications under RH, right? It was deemed unconstitutional, I think.
subdivisions as RH are not typically taken in anymore. Those are treated as planned
Right.
unit developments. And
Right.
really, this is what. this
So I think that's a
functions.
hardship in and of itself, that he's got a zoning, that the zoning needs to be changed so that he can be 3.5 feet. And that's a long road to go down to when you just need to be approved for this. That's my feeling on it.
Could I?
Yes, do you have a
Okay,
question?
so I want to get an understanding of what the issues are, because I thought I did and I don't.
Well, I'll be glad to explain what my issue is, as I understand it. So the ordinance says that if you have a 9-foot tall structure, then that structure needs to be, accessory structure, needs to be 9 feet from your property line. Your property line is, your structure is currently about 4.5 feet from the property line. The structure to come into compliance would have to be moved another 4.5 feet away from the property line.
Okay, but if I'm hearing this right, the other residential zoning in Germantown allows these structures to exist 3.5 feet from a property line.
If they're 8 feet tall,
If
which is where
they're, if
this,
they're 8 feet tall.
Right.
So even if I were in that zoning, I would still be here asking for a variance of a foot instead of 4.5 feet.
yes, sir.
Okay, now I understand that. So, all I will add is that it's 32 feet from Johnson Road. There's a 20-foot landscape buffer that will never be built. It won't be used for anything other than trees and grass and sidewalks. And, I think that is something that I would like the board to consider as you do this. I really do not want to pull my application.
Sure.
If y'all tell me that's the best thing to do, that's what I'll have to do. But I really would like to cook a steak, So.
I understand, and I appreciate, and part of what we try to do for our applicants is just to help them understand their choices, because we get that you don't come in front of us every month.
Well, I am in the real estate business, and it's a little embarrassing that I'm even in this position, but I am, but still in reading code and regs, I'm not a lawyer. I only watch it on TV, so anyway.
I was a planner, and I found myself in the same spot you were in. Now, so if it's Greg Hurley's world and I get to say it's a no-brainer, I'm voting yes, because I want you to have your grilling station, and I can't see it from the road and so forth. But there are criteria that we have to use to make a decision about variances, and nowhere in there does it say whether you can see it from the road or not, which is what my issue is. Now, I certainly wish that your homeowners association had not kicked it down the road to local government to make that decision, because they have a lot more leniency in making decisions. But they kicked it down to us, and we have a much narrower range of options.
I can appreciate that.
Since we've had some other comments to this effect, I would say that typically I agree with my commissioners in the sense that we do have a very restrictive ordinance, and it's something that is difficult for us and difficult for the public sometimes to understand, that we can't grant it because we don't see any harm in it and it sounds like a good idea. But I will say that the fact that their structure existed when you purchased the property, even though you have taken additional acts to maintain it, because the original structure was deteriorating, so we wouldn't want you to leave a deteriorating structure on your property. I find that to be extremely compelling as far as an exceptional situation, that you, it's not the same that if you were to sit down and design your landscaping right now and build this structure. So you were going off of what was there already. You thought you were just fixing what was there already. So I find that to be compelling as far as a reason to grant a variance for this situation. I find it to be exceptional in that, you know, that's not something that we're going to see at every piece of property, that we're just replacing what was already there. And we don't have enough information to know if that particular structure was properly granted. So that to me is compelling in the sense that it reaches that level of qualifying under the statute, under the ordinance as I interpret it, which is the great thing about our commission, is that each person gets to have their own interpretation of what meets the ordinance. So for what it's worth, that's my explanation why I will be voting yes if the motion comes presented to our commission.
Madam Chairman, I'm going to make a new motion that we grant approval for a variance on this property if the fixture is no higher than 8 feet.
And I would second that.
Well, I believe that if somebody makes a motion, then that's
You gotta call the roll.
See if this motion carries or if it fails.
Yeah.
right. So our choice at this point is we have a motion, we have a second, so we have,
Yeah, I think this will get him off at least give him some idea of where we are, so.
So if this motion fails, then we would revert back to the original motion?
Yes.
that's my understanding.
And I'm sorry, what is the original motion?
To approve it.
At 9 feet.
Approve it or
The 9-foot high.
So, again, I'm sorry, so the motion is to approve it with a reduction of a foot. If that does not pass,
Then they will entertain the original motion, whether or not to grant you what you asked for.
okay.
Did we have an original motion?
Yeah, well,
It hadn't been read yet, but it's on the,
You're always given a proposed motion.
Okay.
okay. At this point, I think just Robert's Rules of Order, we have a motion, we have a second, so we need to take take the roll on this motion.
Mr. Hurley?
No.
Ms. Bowden?
I vote yes, based on the situation. I'm not sure if this structure was built in 2004 and we have no idea about the permits from around 2010, so I vote yes.
Mr. Uhorn?
I'd like to vote no so he can just do it the way it is. So y'all with me if I said vote no and we come back for the original?
Unfortunately, that's not the way that it works.
Okay, I'm just telegraphing you the way that others have telegraphed today about what they'd be doing. Yes.
Mr. Harless?
Yes.
Alderman Gibson?
Yes.
Chairman Sisson?
Yes. And with that, a little bit of unusual circumstance, your variance is granted with that caveat that it come down to 8 feet. So as far as what you can do with that going forward, you can talk to staff as far, I don't know if there is a procedure if you really wanted it to be more than 8 feet.
He would have to come back for a variance.
Reapprove.
Would he have to come back in 6 months again? Have to wait 6 months? His original request was not denied.
No, yeah.
No, so he could come back next month and ask for 9
Well,
feet again?
does he have to come back next month? I mean, we've had a motion, we've had it granted, so I think it seems to me at this point it's up to the applicant whether he accepts that or if he wants to ask for the original motion.
You want the original motion?
Is that, Alan, does that make sense? Okay. So, so unfortunately, put you on the spot some more. At this point, the ball's now in your court. You can take the variance granted, or you can request that we have the motion that the original structure as it's currently built. If that fails, then it's
Curtains.
then it's done, correct, Alan?
Wrecking ball?
That means
ball?
you have to wait, it has to come into compliance, you have to wait 6 months and reapply.
I mean, y'all, my thing is he's under, in RH, he's in a more restrictive zoning that he is had we zoned it as everything else.
But Frank, it doesn't have anything to do with the zoning.
Oh,
It has to do with the height.
Well, it's the distance, the zoning, you know.
Nope, we're not doing anything about the distance. It's up or down.
Oh, okay. I got you. I follow you. Stick with what you got.
So let me make sure that, okay, so at this point, the applicant's choice is to accept the variance we've granted, or he can request the original motion. If the original motion fails, then it fails and he has to wait 6 months. Is that correct?
He wants to reapply for the variance, or he would just bring it into compliance.
But bringing it in compliance
Mr. Strain,
would,
can he, if the second motion fails, can he revert back to the motion that just passed?
The applicant can make another motion other than the 8-foot motion, which has already been voted.
So 7 feet, 11 inches, or 8 feet, 1 inch?
He can make a request, any request that he likes.
Okay.
It's the board that makes the motion.
I see.
If a member of the board would like to make another motion, the board can.
Okay, but if Alan, if we make a motion to grant it as it is, and it fails, does he still get the one that we passed a moment ago? Okay.
I've been on this board for
He's-
6 years, 7 years now. This is
If
new territory.
the applicant says, I'd like to, we have taken it on ourselves to make a motion to reduce it by a foot. And that passed. Now, if the applicant wants to say, no, I'd like for the original motion to be what y'all vote on, and it fails, can he still accept the first motion? And the first one, the one that we granted earlier, would still be in place.
If the board would like to, the applicant can change his position or keep his position, and he's made his request to the board. If the board wants to undertake another motion, it can.
Okay, but if it fails, does he get the first one?
The first one has already been granted. Tonight's motion has been granted.
Okay,
Okay.
so it doesn't go away.
Unless a member of the board wishes to bring this motion up that is passed and ask that it be denied, that would be the only.
Okay, so So there's no double jeopardy. Okay, so he can do that without any consequences if it goes down badly.
And then, from what I'm hearing, he doesn't have to do it. Somebody on the commission can make an additional motion.
I see, said the blind man. Okay. So it's not on us. He doesn't request it. I make another motion. I make a motion to move to approve it as it is.
Do I have a second?
Second?
Okay, so now we've got a pending motion. You will call the roll.
Mr. Harless,
I vote no.
Mr. Hurley,
No.
Mr. Yulhorn,
Yes.
Ms. Bowden,
No.
Alderman Gibson,
No.
Chairman Sisson.
Yes. So that motion unfortunately did not pass, but as we have discovered, the first variance is still granted.
I
So-
appreciate the effort. Thank you very much.
So,
And I apologize for putting you guys in this position.
no,
I'm,
it's always
you know,
something good to learn.
Well-
Now I know. And I appreciate your patience.
Just a comment, Mr. Gladwell, you have nothing to apologize for. You have improved your property.
Well,
It's,
it's really nice like it is.
and I know that. And I think that Mr. Hurley explained it as best as he possibly could, and we thank you for improving your neighborhood.
Well, if anybody can find, you know, that oddity, it's me. So, but again, I appreciate everyone's effort. I can't say enough about Sarah and the staff at Code Enforcement and Planning. They have gone out of their way to help us through this process, responding to emails on weekends, taking my phone calls and everything, and they've been wonderful
Well, you've
to
been
work
exceedingly patient as well, so we're excited for you to be able to get that steak.
Thank you, Mr. Gladwell.
with. All right, I'll get the chainsaw out.
All right, there being no old business or new business, I believe we are ready to adjourn. So, good night. Thank you.